Welcome to the Association 100 podcast. The A100 podcast is an extension of our Association 100 bi-monthly newsletter that focuses on best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies and tactics that work in the world of associations. The podcast will feature meaningful conversations with association professionals across the country, taking a deeper dive into trending topics, offering insights that both inform and inspire. Welcome back to the A100 podcast. I'm Colin Gallagher, and I'm joined by my co-host, Megan Henning. Today, we're so excited to have Rusty Williams, the co-founder of Answer Stage, on the podcast. We've been talking video and how associations can up their video game a bit lately, and we're really excited for today's conversation. Thanks for joining us today, Rusty.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's set this stage for our listeners and tell us more about Answer Stage and how you work with associations.
Sure. So we kind of start with the thought that your most valuable marketing asset as an association are your members, are the people who are part of your association, attend your events, really participate in your community. And so, in thinking about that, what's the best way to leverage that asset, your membership, the enthusiasm, the advocacy that can come from that? And the answer is video. But then for most people, that's kind of a quick nod your head and you're bought into that concept, but it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's very hard to do. Right. So we set out to solve that problem, to try and make it something that you can do not just for a few, but for hundreds of people. And so our platform, Answer Stage, is used to send out a link, collect responses, and then transform those responses into a branded video that can be shared on social networks and blogs and emails, etc. So we've automated the collection process and we've automated the production process so that it can be done at scale. Again, literally hundreds rather than a few videos is a type of project that we would pursue.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you talk about going to the members and using them as a resource, because that's what associations are all about. And if you don't leverage your members, you're doing something wrong. So
exactly. I'd
love to talk member engagement specifically and how you think video plays a role in driving that.
Yeah, well, so, I know that the word community is used a lot with associations. And I always think it's interesting to kind of come back to the word association. Like the whole point is that we have something in common. We are associated with each other, and that's why we're part of the organization that you're part of. And so that whole concept of community and reinforcing relationships is is a key factor. So membership reinforcement and acquisition is a key part of what we help associations do. And so a great example is just telling the stories, literally telling the stories of people who become members, why they became members, and what benefit they got from it. So here's one example. We have a client we'll talk more about in a little bit, but their focus is on security, but physical security. And so a lot of people that are part of their association are from the armed forces. And they collect a bunch of stories about how did you transition from military life to a more civilian or public type service career. And so they gather those stories about those kind of career transitions, very specific, very personal, but it's something that the people can relate to that are part of their association.
Yeah, I mean, storytelling is what it's all about, and having the members themselves do it, that's so important. So I think that's a really, really good tactic there.
Yeah, that's sort of really the foundation of again, if you can leverage the voices and the personalities of the people who are part of your association, the better. I should point out that this isn't something that, we'll get into more details, I'm sure, in a little bit, but it isn't something that just sort of flows out into the world unreviewed. When you get a response, you ask somebody for a response, you ask them a question that's pertinent to their world, to their story, you get back their responses, you get a chance to review it, and then you publish it where you want to. So this isn't something that's happening organically, like on Facebook or somewhere else. It does have kind of a submission and review aspect to it.
I think that's important for so many associations, just because there is that element of control, and
Right.
you always wonder, what's going to get out there, and so just being able to have some oversight. I think you're still allowing for organic engagement, but
Yep.
It's not out of your hands entirely.
Exactly.
Have a member say something that is contradictory to what the whole association stands for.
Correct.
We've experienced that as well.
Yes.
Yes, that's for sure. So I do want to dive into some more specifics in a minute, but before we get there, so we talk member engagement. Member intention is obviously a huge piece of that, and why you engage your members in the first place, and being able to keep your members there. So is there anything in addition to those ideas you talked about that you think video plays a specific role in terms of member retention?
Yeah. So, I mean, as you said, it's all about storytelling. And so I gave one example of like why, some of the things that Collect are all about how certification has helped my career. And so those are almost sort of like how you can acquire new members, like help me justify why I should be part of this association. Then once people are part of it, it's about the stories of what they get from the association. So how have our resources helped you in the decisions you've made? How has volunteering been a fulfilling activity for you? So I know every association has different kinds of dynamics, but those are the kind of things that help tell the story of why is this something that is helping me on an ongoing basis. And of course, that's all comes back to retention. And the final piece is really just giving some notoriety, if you will, or some attention to people, and asking them, well, what are some of the trends that are affecting your business? What are some making them part of the overall content creation and conversation that's happening is fulfilling for them. It's helpful to the people who are part of your association, and it really kind of makes the whole thing have a better cohesion. And that's part of what we're really like to be part of.
Yeah, I also think members love to see each other and see themselves. So
Yes.
When you're putting them out there, I
Yes.
think that goes a long way
Yes.
in terms of just making people happy, because it's someone they can relate to and
Yes.
someone in the same position as them. So that aspect of it is really helpful too. And then I think we all know video plays a huge role in event marketing. So, tell me what you're seeing there, how you're using it, and how it's working best for you.
Yeah. So we quite honestly, we kind of were surprised by how applicable this is to helping to promote events and using it in conjunction with events. We had understood well that whole kind of almost testimonial kind of context of storytelling and reinforcing the value of associations. It was only after working with some clients who are like, we have our annual conference coming up. We'd like to showcase some of the speakers that are going to be there and have them give a preview of what they'll be talking about, what the panels are. We'd like to actually have some of the exhibitors talk about the products and services that they'll be exhibiting. And finally, attendees are also a great resource for you. Why did you choose to come? What is it that you're looking to get out of this event? And so that's become a really big part of what we're doing with nearly all of our clients, is this idea of creating a bit of excitement, visibility, and sort of pre-conference content that can help you get people interested in attending, and once they're already planning to attend, kind of ready, their brains kind of geared up and ready to be active from the start.
I think that's so true. Rusty, I don't mean to interrupt, but what I was going to say is I think having that testimonial with, the person's name and their title underneath has really resonated for me if I'm going to think about taking an educational course, and I see like somebody with the similar title as me, and they say something that really resonated. Like, I learned how to do blank. I think regardless of all of the work, and Colleen and I are people that do all that writing and put all of that content together, sometimes that video is just, it's a 2-second thing. And I think, okay, I'm going to sign up for that. because it's really, it really does resonate with what you're looking for. Because it's not as if you can write an entire course and say, here are all the job titles, that would benefit from this. And while Colleen and I have talked about that, and we have put some of those in, I just think that sometimes that 1-minute video really can just deliver. Like, I might have been interested, then I heard the video and I'm like, I'm signing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think it's very helpful. Well,
and as you said, I mean, it's the fact that you know that person in some context, and that you kind of trust their opinion, or you're looking forward to seeing them when you get to, and so it becomes much more of an interpersonal dynamic than just content marketing. It's a and the thing I was going to say when I started to continue on is that when they create these videos, the speakers, the exhibitors, part of the process is trying to encourage them to share them on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, etc. So you're discovering and having the event reinforced through their own sort of social presence, and as an event marketer, you're benefiting from their amplification of that message through their connections too. So that's kind of a key part of what we try to encourage is find the right people who are interested to record these sort of pre-conference summaries or teasers, and then B, encourage them to share that where they can, so everybody learns about it and gets excited about it.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what are some typical mistakes you see associations make, and how would you, put that in a better context? Like, what should they be doing?
Yeah, so part of what we do is it can be done in so many different ways, and so it's hard to say, well, there's that's a really big mistake, because sometimes, like I said, this whole transitioning from military service to civilian service, that part of it is just coming up with an editorial plan or context that works, and so we've built a technology, and the technology helps you collect videos and produce videos, but there's a whole layer on top of it that you guys, I know, are deep into, and that is, what topics are people interested in? What is it that fits? And so, we try to help at that layer, but we've also architected what we do around an editorial thinking. So that's actually why we got the name Answer Stage. Is everything that we do is based on sending a prompt, a question to somebody, and saying, for the security association, it's how did this help in your transition from military to civilian life? For somebody else, it might be for an orthodontist, it might be how did our speaker on new techniques for teeth whitening help you? That's I guess. Orthodontist wouldn't be in that, but my point is figuring out what topics is part of the process. Right. And so it's not really a mistake. It's just something that is sometimes overlooked when you think about the mechanics of creating a video. The reason you're making the video is to actually convey something that will be of interest. So that editorial layer, I think, is an important thing to think about.
I would agree. I mean, Colleen and I often say, like, purpose and planning are two things that have to go hand in hand with all of this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Right.
Right. I mean, I feel like that we have said that to so many of our clients.
Yeah. Yep. With anything, it's like you don't do any comms effort just for the sake of doing it. There's got to be a reason. It's got to come back to your business goals.
Right.
Yes. So let's talk about some case studies and some success stories. You mentioned your work with one of your clients and how they've really leaned into video. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I should acknowledge that I've already been kind of talking about them as this security example. So their name is ASIS.
Okay.
And they are the American Security, that it's an abbreviation that includes American Security. But it's not security, it's not cybersecurity. I think some of that but it's mostly kind of physical security and how do you secure a location, et cetera. So again, it has a lot of military people who are part of it in law enforcement. They have use this in a fantastic way to reinforce membership. So they gather these testimonials about volunteering, about resources, about career enhancement, about why did you join, what value do. So there's a whole track that they have ongoing where they've created literally hundreds of videos with these kind of stories, both domestically, and the other thing is they're international. So they've collected a bunch that are from other countries. So that's really a great example where their footprint and their the storytelling that they've been able to do is super broad and super valuable to them. They have a full channel on YouTube that is filled with videos that they've made with Answer Stage. They also have an annual conference called GSX, and GSX has thousands of people come to it. So they use it, as we just discussed, to preview people who will be speaking. So you get panelists talking about what topics and trends they'll be covering during their panel, exhibitors talking about what they'll be exhibiting. And so, they really use that full spectrum of what we just went over, of the testimonial-like or the personal story-like videos. And then those are an ongoing sort of, all year long, all month long, all the time. So that's really kind of part of, we were talking about the editorial planning, like part of their content planning, part of their calendar is let's do X number of videos per month and make that part of what we can send to people by email, YouTube, social media, etc. So that's part of their ongoing effort. And then the GSX part has kind of a cadence to it where, in 3-4 months before they start collecting videos, during the conference, they actually collected some videos from people on the floor. And then afterwards they said, how happy I was. So it kind of has a before, during, and after type of value.
I love that. I think that's great. Are there any other examples that stand out to you that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, so there are quite a few associations, but many of them follow the same pattern of talking about the value of membership and promoting events. We have a ton that have promoted events. Like we have the pet retailers of America who use this to talk about their upcoming conference, and part of that it's somebody talking about how grooming can be an enhancement to your overall revenue for your pet retail association. We have the Autonomous Vehicle Association talking about the legal regulation, evolution, and changes that are happening that are impacting the world of autonomous vehicles, both drones and self-driving cars. And so they have a lot of topics where there are people who are talking about that, and that helps, again, mostly help people get excited about their annual event. And the final example I give, it actually isn't an association, but kind of just as a good illustration. We work with a group called Innovation Women, and their purpose is to help create a resource of women speakers for events. And what they use us for is to create a very short reel, like what is your area of expertise, what's your signature talk. And so they create a database and a showcase for people who speak at events that are available for people that are looking for, keynote speakers or topic speakers, and specifically in this case, women. So then they've worked with us for a long, long time and love it as a way to create those kind of glimpses as to, who are these people and would they be good for our conference.
That's amazing.
That's really cool. I love that use case. Shifting gears a little bit. So you talked a bit about the planning and the understanding what content you want out of it, but what are other questions that associations should be thinking about when they're considering using video in this manner?
I think one of the questions is really kind of stepping back and fitting it in with the overall content planning and calendar. So we've already been over that point. In doing so, you need to say, well, who is it that will do that? So we have automated much we've made this much simpler, but that doesn't mean that it happens on its own. Somebody has to send a link to a certain person and then ask for that response within a certain time period. When it comes in, somebody needs to make sure, as Megan says, it's not off in left field and doing something that is totally wrong. So we've made it super streamlined, but there's still a person that should have this on their to-do list. And that's typically in the marketing department. It could also be with your marketing agency. We work with some agencies who that do this on behalf of associations. So it could be that it's something that you just say, well, talk to our agency and have them help with this. So I think that's really the kind of the key thing is it's much simpler. You can do hundreds of videos, but it's still who is it that will take on thinking about this? Who will make sure there's a column in the content calendar that says and plus our videos? And how do you make this part of your mindset as you go forward? Because if you don't do that, you end up kind of a smattering, and then 3-4 months go by and another smattering, and someone goes, oh yeah, what about that? And then that sort of fits and starts dynamic could be something that would be a problem that you wouldn't be getting as much value if that's the way you handle it. So I think it's much more of, as we keep saying, it has to fit into, as you guys say, like how does it fit in with everything else that we're doing?
Yeah, there's nothing worse than having all of this great content and not thinking about how to use it or just letting it sit on the shelf.
Right.
Oh gosh, it kills me.
I guess the final thing I'd say too is once you have a video from somebody, there should be a clear plan on how it gets shared, so you get the value out of it. So we've seen in a few cases, well, there's like great videos here, and they don't get shared anywhere but like posted on YouTube with nobody even knowing they're there. And so the plan for how does it get out into our newsletters, social media, and other places where people discover it, I think is another critical element.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. We've been talking about video a bit, like I mentioned, and one thing I say is with video and social media, 10, 12 years ago, I'd be asking, is your association using social media? Are you doing video? And now it's kind of taken for granted that, the question is, how are you using it? But I do think there are still a fair amount of associations that haven't quite gotten fully into video or just don't know how to embrace it or are kind of afraid to get started, especially smaller staff ones that might not know, how are we going to do this? How are we going to pull it off? So for those out there that haven't jumped on the bandwagon yet, what do you recommend to them for how they can get started or what makes the most sense?
I think just don't have grand and glorious ambitions. Come up with a stepping stone kind of plan. When I say grand and glorious, I mentioned you can do 100 of these a month. Don't make that your first objective. Make it so 1 a week or 2 a month even. But that it's still, if you think about what it costs to typically produce a video, it still would be cost effective if you did 2 a month. And so I would say come up with something that really fits what you're doing overall of your overall content marketing, and then feather these in a way that you don't overwhelm yourself and you get to take advantage of it, and then you build from there. So once you've got the technique and the process down, you can ramp up, I think, in a much more reasonable way. And so I guess that would be my only thing is don't go in thinking, we're going to do 100 videos this month and expect, if you're short on staff, I mean, there's certainly some that have agencies and have decent, are the size where that works just fine. But you're pointing out that some people are resource constrained, or either just, they don't staff constrained, or just, don't really know how to do this at all. I think defining a starting point and then ramping up from there would be the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's definitely great. I think part of it is that don't let good be the enemy of great. I mean, because with any video, I mean, obviously you're not going to put something out there that looks terrible or that is not what you want to convey, but also fretting over it so much that it has to be perfect before you do anything, I think just stops people in their tracks.
Yeah, I guess I should emphasize that we put a lot of effort into making, so what you get is a video back of a person speaking that isn't really unlike a Zoom call or a FaceTime call or something. You're using your phone or your computer to record this response. What we do is we take it and we put animations around it, branding around it, make it so that that whole thing looks visually compelling. But the source of the person isn't better than a phone or a computer. But we're in a world where that's perfectly acceptable.
Especially the last few years, that's what we're used to.
Yeah. So the people who are looking for, broadcast quality, super sizzle, CNN, or MSNBC, things, you're not going to get there. But what you get is something it's really good. So I think I said this in some other webinar or podcast. I think that, perfectionism can be a real hindrance. I think overall, you want to have editorial control, but you also don't want to not tell the story of the person who transitioned from military service to civilian service because they said ums and ahs and they kind of didn't things exactly right. That's human. That's a human,
Yes.
talking.
Absolutely. Well, we cannot conclude this podcast without talking about something Colleen and I talk about all the time, which is AI. And I just want to get your thoughts on it. Are you integrating it? Are you hiding from it? What's your thoughts on this?
No, we think about it a lot. I mean, we really are at an inflection point where this is a huge opportunity. It's a huge benefit. It can be kind of scary. So we've already actually integrated AI. We are really enthusiastic about it and believe that it can do a lot of things that help. But we use consistently the term AI assisted rather than AI created, and I think that's part of what a lot of people don't get is that, you see these things that are AI created and even ChatGPT will create a good draft of a blog post, but that's not something you should press a button and say, have that go up my website. It helps you. It takes you to, it could be 70%, which is a great head start. You finish the last 30% and you make sure it's articulated and carries your voice. That's what we're doing is we're using it as a way that when people click a link and they get asked a question, we are now providing talking points that are generated by AI. We're using it to create sort of coaching tips for the people who are responding. We also are using it for the people who are entering the questions. So if you're doing this autonomous vehicle conference, if you can type in what are some key topics and trends that people are thinking about, and it'll give you a list of suggestions of questions that you can choose to send out to your members. In both cases, you can choose. It's not something that is being said for you. It's not something that is being dictated to you. It is simply loading your brain with things that will be helpful to you as you talk and present your authentic self.
That's a great way to keep it authentic. And Colleen and I have had this conversation where we think it's fantastic when you said it might create 70%. Sometimes it's just the fact that you're now not looking at a blank screen.
Exactly.
Right? The fear of sitting down to think, oh my gosh, how will I draft this? It points you in the right direction. So we certainly think of this as a game changer. How do you think this is going to change the landscape?
Oh, so many ways. It's really going to be, I think it's going to be hard to predict, but certainly the thing that we're going to continue to look at is exactly what you just said, is how can we put around you as much support and as much sort of eliminate the blank paper syndrome entirely so that you always have some kind of that's right, that's the direction I want to take this.
Right.
And there will be other sort of magical things that we're only just beginning to see. I mean, you can simulate environments. You can simulate video. Video introductions could be AI generated, and some of that gets into some science fiction, and also some of it gets into a little bit beyond our philosophy of authenticity. Mm-hmm. For example, I do not believe it's a good idea to use the fully simulated, avatars that they're coming up with now that will put in synthesized voices. I mean, I noticed that right away. And it's like, well, who is this person? And they sound robotic. And even if they're not robotic, it's sort of like, why are you doing that? Why wouldn't you want to use somebody who's real? I think those are becoming more and more popular, but I just don't think that's the right way to use the technology. I think it's going to continue to be, how can we make the people who are interacting with other real people just feel more comfortable and learn more and do more quicker. So
Yes.
that 70% jump is super. We all become more productive, and that's the optimistic way of looking at it.
I think that's great. I love the way you're looking at that, because you do fear that, are we just going to be a society of people looking at or listening to and looking at people who aren't real, or,
Right.
because again, that's the authenticity. You
Right.
do need it. You do need, if COVID taught us anything, it's that we need human beings and human interactions. So I don't think we need less of it.
Yeah, no, we totally agree.
Yeah, it's very cool though, and very exciting.
Yes.
But on that note, so we love to wrap up every podcast with some fun questions, just to let our audience get to know you a bit better. So we're going to jump into our lightning round here. We'll start off easy. Where did you grow up?
In Newtown, Connecticut.
Okay,
Nice.
great. If you won the lottery tomorrow, would you still work?
I sure would. Yeah, no, I get a lot of joy from creating new things, meeting people, and seeing how this evolves. Just like we were just talking about, like there's so much happening in the world of AI and technology. It's just always interesting.
Awesome. Well, what's your favorite movie or TV show?
Well, movies, I'm kind of I always go for funny and fun more than profound. So it's like, Monty Python and Tom Hanks and The Office. So it's
I love it.
yeah. So anything that's kind of makes me laugh. Of course, I like good dramas, but most of the time I kind of just enjoy being funny.
I hear you. It's always nice just to actually get to laugh and be happy when you're watching.
Yeah, especially after a long day. Last thing I do is be bummed
That's
out.
your escape. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Definitely. All right. Dogs or cats?
My dog's sitting right here. Yeah, she's keeping me company. So yeah, I not that I don't like cats. I grew up with dogs and cats in the same house, but we've had dogs our whole life.
Awesome. Yeah, I've got my dog right by my side as well.
Yeah.
I have a feeling you just heard my dog.
I heard barely.
So yeah, we're all dog people.
Yeah.
Too funny. And our last question, what's something you missed from the pre-pandemic days?
You guys can see, I know this will be audio, but you can see I'm here in my home office. Super convenient. I love it. But I always enjoyed being in a room with somebody with a whiteboard, and they'd jump up and they'd say, how about this? What if we thought about things this way? And it just was totally organic over a sandwich or a beer. And I miss that. I miss the unexpected brainstorm where somebody who doesn't even have that as their job title gets up and, I've been thinking if we do this, it could really be beneficial. And that, so I miss that. And of course I'd get that if I went back to an office environment, but that's kind of been my post-pandemic experience has been mostly a work at home experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel that one. It really is different, and you can't get that. I know every platform has tried, like the Zoom whiteboards and things like that. It's just not. It's just different.
Yeah, and as I said, sometimes it's not. We could be in this call, and that there's somebody down the hall from you guys that it doesn't even have that responsibility, but you sit down with him or her and you go, oh, I'd never heard of that. I never thought of that. Like, what if we used video for showcasing our cats or our dogs? I don't know. Just, you get into sort of random brainstorms that lead to places that are hard to, I think actually close to impossible to do in a Zoom call. So that in-person dynamic is one that I think will always be valuable. And it's why that in-person events, I think will continue to be valuable. Doesn't mean hybrid and webinars and other things will go away. It just means that in-person time is still really important.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Agree.
Awesome. Well, Rusty, thank you so much. This was a really great conversation. We appreciate you joining us on the A100 today.
Well, I really appreciate being invited, and it's a pleasure meeting both of you.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Association 100 podcast, brought to you by the A100 publishing team, powered by Onward and Upward Marketing and Communications. You can subscribe to the Association 100 podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all of your favorite podcast listening apps so you'll never miss out. or listen via our website at theassociation100.com. Follow us on Twitter at Association100. That's Association100 for all the latest insights and trends impacting the world of associations. Thanks for tuning in.